So Metal Gear Solid Delta is still coming, and we're getting some tidbits from Konami here and there, and I'm following the news, and I'm sure all of y'all are too. This video won't be here to tell you all the new news. This video is going to be my little a wish list, is what I've put together. So a lot of people are making predictions about what's going to be different in Delta, and we know that they've said that they're going to use the original voice lines, and so that means pretty much most of the original narrative, if not all of it, is going to have to be there and stay the same. So if they do change anything, it's going to have to be stuff made that's on top of all of that, stuff that's added to that. So instead of doing like a prediction list and getting a bunch of stuff wrong, I'm going to do a wish list for what I want to see in Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I've got 9 things here on my list, and I'm going to count them down from 9 to 1. Number 9 is I want to see a Skullface reference. Everybody wants to see, a Skullface reference. He's got that line that he was, 1964, Seleno Yarsk, fuck's his first mission. Any mess you made, I was there to clean up. And even if he's kind of lying to us a little bit, that seems like he's saying he was at Seleno Yarsk. He knows what went on there. And I've said in my last video, I think he is literally there. But I think it also would be cool if he is literally there to see some reference. One thing I thought would be neat would be like just some black hat that looks like Skullface's hat hanging on a tree somewhere, just completely out of context. Something, just a little like nod to him. We don't have to like see a skull-faced dude appear over the horizon with some binoculars looking at us and then be like, oh, and then scooch away. We don't need. That'd be funny, but I don't know if we need to see that. So number 8, I want to see some future context written into this. So like, there's this theory that's been going around forever that Metal Gear Solid 3, as we experience it, is a VR simulation. Why is this? Well, it's because there's things in it that kind of don't make sense. The main thing is the calorie mate. The calorie mate was invented in 1983, and so what's it doing in Seleno Yarsk in 1964? And I had posited in another video that was probably there. The anachronisms are in Metal Gear games as a hint as to when they're made in universe, possibly. So this one would be like a hint as to in the Metal Gear universe, Metal Gear Solid 3 or their version of it, which may be Metal Gear Solid Delta, was made in or after 1983, released after 1983, so that they could fit the calorie mate into it. And I don't know if I said that in the last video, but I did have this brainwave. Yeah, I didn't say that in the last video. Maybe Metal Gear Solid Delta is called this because it's in the Metal Gear universe. It was released in the Metal Gear universe probably in the 84 85 time period, and it was the 4th Metal Gear game because we know Delta is the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet, and it's got 3 sides, so we can call it 3. It's got this 3-ness to it, but it's also got this 4-ness to it, and so maybe Metal Gear Solid 3 in our universe was Metal Gear Solid 4 within the universe. Just something to think about. Okay, so number 7, what else do I want to see in this game? Well, I think we need to see, actually, some expanded CQC. CQC was really first introduced in Metal Gear Solid 3. And, there had been, punches and kicks in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. And some, you could call it kind of close quarters type style combat, but the whole CQC system is more about, grabs and throws, and it's got a little judo, a little jujitsu, a little bit of other stuff in it. It's its own little system, and it gets introduced properly to us in, Metal Gear Solid 3, so this would be kind of an appropriate place, I think, to expand on it even more. Now, Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain expanded on it, and really Ground Zeroes did too, but Phantom Pain expanded on it even more, mostly with the bionic arm stuff, which we're not going to have, obviously, in Delta, I don't think. But it would be cool if we could somehow expand CQC a little bit more. There's going to be more aerial stuff, maybe. You climb on stuff. Maybe there's a way you could jump off of something onto a soldier that's patrolling nearby and do like a sort of aerial takedown on them or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they'll add something like that. And also, the stuff that we can do in the Phantom Pain, like being able to disarm an enemy and then hold them up. That'd be kind of cool to do that in Delta. Okay, so number 6. I would like to see some, I call them BTS scenes. So BTS stands for behind the scenes. But really I'm talking about like stuff that's going on with like Tatiana and Rykov that we don't get to see inside Groznygrad. Maybe some of the stuff with Sokolov and Ocelot. Some of the other stuff with the boss in the jungle. We know that she met with Eva at a certain point, and they had a whole conversation that she tells Snake about in a tape that we get in Peace Walker. So we already kind of know that there's been some future context added by other games to Metal Gear Solid 3 scenario, so maybe we could see some of that stuff directly in this game without, spoiling what's already there. Number 5, I would like to see new ways to defeat challenges and bosses. Now, the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 3 are great, and I don't think we should take out anything that's already there, but maybe we can add some new ways to defeat them. Some, maybe environmental stuff. I saw somewhere that they're going to have destructible environments, so maybe we can have that kind of stuff play into some of these fights. Thinking of Rising Revengeance and how that some of those boss fights used the, changing terrain and changing landscape, like the Mistral fight. I also would like to see, kind of related to that, expanded non-lethal options. Like, in Metal Gear Solid 3, I think the only non-lethal option you really get that's viable is the Trank Pistol. If you wanted to do a full non-lethal run, you got to shoot a whole lot of enemies with the Trank Pistol by the end. You can do some, CQC stuff as well, but maybe we could have something more than just a Trank Pistol this time. Maybe they could get like some of the stuff that we get in the Phantom Pain, like the non-lethal shotguns and stuff like that. I don't know what 1964 equivalents of those were really around back then, but maybe they can find a way to figure something out. They've got flying vehicles there, so I'm sure in 64 there was some kind of experimental something. Anyways, number 4. Now, if you remember Metal Gear Solid 3, the way you got the stealth camo is a little bit different. You have to go find all these Keratan frogs that are hidden in all these different places in the jungle and shoot them. And once you've found them all and shot them all, you get the stealth camo, basically. I think you have to do a whole playthrough, and once you finish that playthrough, having shot all the Keratan frogs, on the next one you'll have the stealth camo. So, doing that again in Metal Gear Solid Delta would be cool, first of all. So I hope they bring that back. But second of all, just doing that again would also kind of be a little dull, maybe. Wouldn't it be cool if after you've done your one playthrough where you've gotten the stealth camo and you've taken out all of the Keratans in the jungle, on your next playthrough, what if we have a sort of a Keratan's Revenge scenario where all of the Keratans reinvade the jungle and they're a little bit smaller, a little bit harder to find, and maybe even like they're in a sort of like a bunch of random spots. Maybe there's like a whole bunch of spots they could be in, but they only show up in like 2/3 of the spots, and you got to find them all. So there's a little bit of variance to it every time. It's not just go to the same spots every time and just find them there. You got to kind of, you're gonna have to look for them in this one. It makes it a little bit harder, a little bit more fun. And this would be like a hard mode that you would do for another extra item on your next playthrough. And so what would that be? Well, I don't know, but maybe they could come up with something. My idea is a grappling hook. I think it's long past due that Metal Gear gets some kind of a grappling hook item. And since we're doing Keratan's Revenge and it's goofy stuff, maybe and it's going to be a recontextualization, right? Like the stealth camo. Maybe we can make it something like a frog, like a frog-shaped grappling gun, and you can use it to snatch items from far away or pull yourself up to certain areas and stuff like that. So there's my number 4 idea. Number three, I think they need to bring back the secret theater. Uh, the secret theater is something they've kind of done in a lot of Metal Gear games, and it's pretty cool. It lets you sort of go back and check out alternate versions of cutscenes and stuff like that. But I have kind of a different idea for a secret theater in this game that's wouldn't be the same as the other secret theaters. Uh, I think it'd be cool if they added an area in the forest that's not there in the original game that you can go find, and it's like a literal little stage in the forest, a little theater stage. And whenever you get there, there's like a sort of a like a recreation of the cutscenes that you can view there, and it's actual character models that come out, and the camera zooms in, and it looks like it's the real scene, and the background's changing and everything, and lets you check out some of the story stuff. But this would only be available after you've played through the game, of course. But also, I think it'd be cool if an area like this had like a photo mode in it. If it was a big enough area, you could do like a bird watching deal where you have to find all the different birds in the jungle and take pictures of them in this area, and then turn in all those photos to somebody there, and then you go out into the rest of the jungles and find all these other photos of birds and bring them back and get something cool. I don't know, maybe like unlock a new camo or face paint or something. Maybe even like this would be how you play as different characters or something like that. I don't know. But I think a secret theater stage, like a literal secret theater in the forest, would be kind of a neat way to do a secret theater in a Metal Gear game. Maybe they won't do it in Delta, but I think that's kind of cool. You see why this is why it's not a predictions list. This is a wish list. Another thing I'd like to see them do is another version of Snake Tales. In Metal Gear Solid 2, they had Snake Tales where, as you're playing as Raiden at certain parts of the game, Snake's over on another strut or in another cell. He's in another part of the facility doing other stuff. You're talking to him over the radio. You're also talking to Stillman at one point and stuff like that. And there's other stuff happening sort of off screen away from you. You don't get to directly see it. And so Snake Tales gives you an option to play through some of the Snake sections that he did, but it also gives you like some alternate story stuff as well. Like there's one where Raiden tries to travel back to Zanzibar land and stop Big Boss there, and it fails because the theme is comes back up that you can't change your past. So yeah, I think it'd be cool for Snake Tales to show up in 3 and sort of introduce some time bending scenarios to the Snake Eater scenario. So like, what if Volgan had to fight a Gamera or a Genola, something like that. Just have fun with it. Bring in some of the bosses from the future into the past, or just replace people with people. Exchange Zero in the plane with like James Johnson, or something like that. Replace Sokolov with Baker. Have fun with it, and give the player the option to do that maybe with the secret theater stuff. That's kind of what I was thinking. So, but anyways, so there's 9 through 2. So what's my number 1, right? What's my big wish? Well, this one's the one that might be kind of a prediction. I think we're going to get a survival mode. I'd like to see a survival mode that's like, harder than European Extreme difficulty. If you don't know about European Extreme, there's a version of Extreme that was only available, I think, in some games. I think it was like Metal Gear Solid 2 only had a different Extreme version than the American version. Maybe that was it. But anyways, they put this into a later game as an explicit European Extreme mode. I think it was in 3, where anytime you get spotted, it's game over. And so it's just extremely difficult. And so a survival mode would be cool, where it's like, one spot, one death, one alert or whatever, and you're done. And to add on to that, what would make it harder, right? Well, there's this idea that Kojima had for Metal Gear Solid 3 that got cut. You may remember, you may not. He wanted to do a version of this game. I think he wanted to make Yeah, I think it wasn't just a version of it. I think he wanted to make the game itself essentially like a roguelike game, so that whenever you were playing through it and you died, you had to start back at the very beginning of the operation. Meaning, think about how hard that boss fight with the boss was at the very end, and how many times you just get bodied and just completely trashed by her before you can finally start at least kind of fighting back, and how many times you'd have to replay the whole game just to beat that boss. I think maybe they're going to do something like that in Metal Gear Solid Delta, where they'll do like a survival sort of roguelike one death mode, where you can't get spotted, you have little ammo, little supplies. Hunger and thirst will probably be a lot more oppressive, and you'll have to do more to keep those meters up. But I think they're gonna maybe, if they do that, and say you get through the whole game. I haven't talked about this in my lecture series yet, but when I get there, a quiet exit kind of has, from the Phantom Pain, the mission 45, has a lot of narrative parallels to this last boss fight with the Joy, the Snake and the Joy in Seleno Yarsk. But in a quiet exit, the quiet is on your side, and you're fighting against all of the Soviets. Well, just go with me here. Why is Snake killing the boss at all? Who's demanding it? Well, it's the Soviets, right? Because Volgin launched that Davy Crockett and blew up an R&D facility on Russian soil, so the Russians demand somebody pays for that, right? And that's why, as part of this whole operation, the Joy must be killed. The boss must die. But at the very end of the operation, okay, let's say they've done everything, done it all properly. Nobody's been spotted. It's all contained, right? And then do you still really need to kill the boss though? It's like, does she really need to die? I think maybe they'll give us a choice, is what I'm saying. Maybe there's some way that we can find another option. And the other option, to me, here's what it is in my mind, y'all. It's a combination of scenarios that we've seen before. It's essentially a combination of a quiet exit and the Metal Gear Solid 4 finale. I think instead of fighting the boss, I think Snake will just be like, I'm not going to fight you. And then Fox will come out of the jungle and probably join the boss, and the two of them will fight off, and they'll probably, whoever's got forces nearby, probably the Soviets, but also maybe the Americans, they'll probably just send everything against them. Tanks, gunships, all kinds of stuff. And they'll have to fight them off. That's Johnny and Meryl's stand. And then Snake, so then what does Snake have to do? He has to turn and run through the jungle, I think. And what are they going to do in the jungle? They're probably going to set it on fire, like the microwaved hallway, and having to face all the drones and all that stuff. So you'll probably have to run back through the jungle and avoid a lot of stuff, and maybe catch on fire a little bit and not burn to death. Get to the end, and what happens at the end? Well, we know you fight Ocelot. So maybe you fight. That's why Ocelot's in that whole chase, and you have that little kind of joke encounter with him at the end of 3 that we do. Maybe that there's some other version of this where we go against Zero's wishes at the very end and fight Ocelot off, and then maybe after we fight him off, some alternate ending would happen. What would that be? I don't know. It'd be a change though. With that said, Delta.